Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Chennai Chess Olympiad 2022. It is round number 8. In this round, we have many battles between the Titan teams that are up there in first, second, third place competing for a medal. As the Olympiad reaches its conclusion, I know many of you want me to feature games of players from the country that you're in, but it's not always going to be possible. I'm trying to cover as many games that are important for the standings as I can. And having said that, there are still incredible individual storylines in this Olympiad of people having perfect scores after 8 rounds. And on that note, we will kick things off today not with Magnus Carlsen. Magnus's team played against Slovakia today. Magnus was in a draw against their board 1, Jörgus Pečák, and Norway tied with Slovakia 2-2. We got to start forgetting about Norway unless Magnus plays a beautiful game. It was not a crazy, eventful game, and honestly, I would rather focus on God mode, which is what's up there. United States is taking on India B today, the B team of India, but honestly, they could be the A team at this point. They are young superstars, and Fabiano Caruana is playing against D GUKESH. GUKESH D, who is 7 out of 7. Caruana begins the game with a Rossolimo, something that he played exclusively, as well as the Open Sicilian against Magnus in their World Championship match. We have B takes C6, Rook E1, and there's many setups that white can choose from here. White can play with D3, white can play C3, D4. Also important to note that black oftentimes plays DC6, trying to open up this bishop and then playing E5 to plug the center. So GUKESH playing, I think, the second most common move, although it's very close. And Fabiano early on sacrifices his E-pawn and plays the move D3 to play against this ugly structure. And GUKESH says, you can have a pawn right back, Mr. Caruana, because if you take this, I will now try to put my pawn in the center with F5, E4. And look at the engine eval in this position. The engine thinks white's position is horrible. This structure for black is loved by Stockfish because Stockfish really likes the black bishops being active. So Fabi doesn't accept the sacrifice, takes like this, and then after knight takes E5, right, you can't take this because there's this. Knight F5, bishop F4. Fabiano seemed to have gotten the better out of the opening battle. GUKESH in this position is worse, right? I mean, like, he wants to play for E5, so Fabiano stops it with D4. GUKESH plays G5, and, well, I mean, what do you do in a position where you are obviously slightly worse? I mean, your dark square bishop on G7 is sort of blocked. White has very kind of natural moves that are upcoming, maybe a way to start bullying your pieces. What do you do when you're slightly worse? You lash out. You play H5. You start throwing heat at your opponent, right? This is what GUKESH does, looking to create some counterplay. Fabi plays Rook E4, preventing the move G4. GUKESH plays Queen D7, Rook F7, and starts building just an impenetrable fortress. All right, he's like, Rook F7, Queen D7, Bishop F8. Do something, Fabi. Do something. Let's go. You want to win this game so bad. You want the US to win. Do something, right? White's got to do something. Okay, it's plus 0.7, but how? So Fabi starts looking around. Is it Queen E2? Can I poke and prod into the position like this? Fabi's like, you know what? This is my moment. Let's go with B4. Here we go. B4. And now Rook B1. And I'm going to play, you know, on the queen side. But GUKESH is like, what queen side? You really want to play B5? I'm just going to take. Now you got rid of my weakness and you've activated my bishop. So that plan's not going to work. All right, back to E1. Back to B1. We're going to repeat. And now GUKESH is like, you hesitated too long. A5. A5, oh my. Knight A4. Now, while this game is going on, it's not clear what's going on the other side of the board, like on the other boards. So Fabiano's maybe not looking for damage control. Fabiano's looking to get, you know, as aggressive as possible. He's got to take a risk to win this game. He sacrifices the pawn on A3. GUKESH now is beating Fabiano Caruana after defending a slightly worse position. And Fabiano unable to break through. GUKESH throws the rooks over there. Fabi tries to fight back on the king side, but that was where GUKESH was stronger. Takes, knight back to H6, and now look at this. This bishop never had to move, but it still gets activated with the move E5. And suddenly, the white position begins completely collapsing. GUKESH out-calculating here, finding all the critical moments. Queen to D2, queen to F3, you can take with check, I block. It's -8, and by the end of this game, with a combination of a few more simplifying moves, queen takes E4. The final move, sacrificing the queen. You can't even take it because there's mate. The bishops cover the king's escape. The game ends with GUKESH up 8 points, 3 pieces against Fabiano Caruana. And with this win, GUKESH is now number 20 in the world. Fabiano Caruana has fallen to 13th in the world, his lowest ranking in, I think, 10 years. Somebody said that before COVID, since COVID, like since February, March 2020, Fabiano has lost something like 90 points, 100 points. It's actually unbelievable. Like, it's insane. It's insane. I mean, we just hope he bounces back. GUKESH is 8 out of 8. He has a 33-66 performance. He has gained like 35, 40 points in this event. I don't even know the number. He is the number 2 ranked player in India behind Vishwanathan Anand. He's 16! 16 years old! What? I want his autograph. Let's get him on the podcast. Let's get him some sponsors. Oh my goodness, India, you have an unbelievable amount of talent in your country. Oh my goodness. Now, speaking of other talent from your country, this was another decisive game in this match. Would the United States fight back on this board where they have their biggest rating mismatch? This is the board 4 matchup. Board 4 for the United States is a 27-54. That man would be board 1 for literally every other country in the Olympiad. Except maybe like the Netherlands, who has a 27-60, and Magnus. Like a few teams. Raunik Sadhwani is gonna try to have to beat Dominguez Perez's Najdorf. But he doesn't know in the opening what's going to happen on the GUKESH board, right? He's just, all right, so we have a main line, h5, preventing white from playing g4. This is the English attack, very popular and imbalanced opening position. And you see here how Linier plays this h4 move and is like, all right, well, you're not going to be able to attack me because my pawn is here. And it's a very kind of g1, trying to prepare g3, b4. Knight comes back and white plays g3. And the sides have clashed here in the middle, a5, and again, an example of the Super GM getting the better position from the opening. King h8 maybe, trying to sidestep all this g-file stuff, and a4 is on the way. Like, Linier has done a nice job here. His bishops are monitoring. This is going to come through very quickly, and white is going to be under some pressure. So Raunik plays rook g5. And that move has an idea behind it that is so savage. The idea is that if black falls for the move a4, which looks like what you wanted to do, I'm not going knight c1 to defend my king. I'm going knight d4. What? Excuse me? Well, here are your options. You either don't take my knight and play like queen c7. If you play queen c7, I'm going to take the bishop. You've now lost a major attacker. And now I'm going to continue to attack your king. If you do take my knight, all I want from my knight is one pawn. I just want one pawn. That's it. What? Why? Well, because there's a threat in this position for white, and it's rook takes g7. Oh my god. Oh my god. If king g7, check, the king goes to h8, check, here, it's just mate. My bishops completely obliterate your king. Raunik just sacrificed a piece for one pawn and is just going to calmly move forward into the black position. Look at this. This is incredible. But Linier is defending. The game is not over. But the piece has been won back. Queen f6. Let's go back to b5. The attack has been paused. We have succeeded. We won material. Now it's time to deal with the opponent's aggression. White is up 2 pawns, but the pawns are ugly. Doubled b pawns, doubled h pawns. All right. Rook back to b4. Queen back to e3. And as the time control was reached around the 40th move, slight advantage slip for sure, right? I mean, black fought back. He did a nice job. Obviously, white's pawn structure is not very good. Until move 40. As Dominguez Perez played the move knight d5, which looks very appealing. But after this check and the king moving out of danger, suddenly black has no way to deal with all the pins. There's nothing that black can do. And slowly but surely, he applied more pressure. Black lost another pawn. And Linier Dominguez Perez resigned the game right here. And India B just beat the United States. That is unbelievable. The United States is now not tied for first, not tied for second. They are tied for third. There is a 10-team tie for third place. And the United States is the lowest team, according to their total points scored, I think. That's what the standing said, unless there's a mistake. The United States is currently in 16th place, according to the tie breaks. There are still 3 rounds to go, but that is shocking. Now, what is going on board 1? I will tell you what's going on board 1. India is playing Armenia, the other Indian team. India team 1 is playing Armenia. Armenia is in first. Every other game was a draw. It's up to board 1. The winner of this game, as we see a slow Slav and a long positional grind, which is going to have no queens on. The winner of this game will leapfrog either into first place or continue to have a bind on first place. Now, any spoiler, this game is 102 moves, so I'm going to kind of continue to click the forward button. We had, obviously, this battle on the H file, and a long time, you know, coming. We now have I don't even know what to call this. This is a minor piece endgame, but they're 7 pawns each. It's a fascinating position. This is what we're going to play. It looks like simplified chess, you know? Would you play chess if like things gotten traded like this? Hare Krishna trades a couple of pawns and puts his knight into the middle. Sargsyan with the bishop pair comes back and gets into 2 bishops versus bishop-knight endgame. And he begins just asking questions. He's just asking questions like, how are you going to defend yourself as I continue to apply pressure and centralize my pieces, right? What is the game plan here for white? Well, let's let Sargsyan show us. Black plays e5, and now we have another pawn trade. We're down to 4 pawns each. The white king walks back to e4, but how is white gonna make... Oh, okay, so white has made progress via f5. Counterplay is being controlled, right? Knight a5, bishop e5 is check. Bishop there, you can't take the pawn because I'm gonna pin you to your king. Check, king e7, and Sargsyan is still looking. He's still looking. Would Stockfish hold this with black? Yes, but Stockfish is Pantala Hare Krishna. Black is Pantala Hare Krishna, he's not Stockfish, right? Still trying. We're in the 70s now. Still trying. Where's the win? All right, we've now broken through again with a pawn, down to 2 pawns each. How is white gonna win this game? By bringing his king. He's going to use his king as the mechanism to get in and block the enemy king while also trying to pick off those weaknesses. We are now nearing 100 moves of this game. Time is ticking, and we seem to have slowly but surely arrived. 1 pawn falls. And now the second pawn will fall as well, and black resigns. It took over 100 moves, but Sargsyan breaks through against Pantala Hare Krishna, and Armenia remains in first place over India B and the winner of this matchup. Uzbekistan versus Germany. Every other game was a draw, including Nodirbek Abdusatura versus Vincent Keimer on board 1. But it's not fair. You could maybe call it cheating. Uzbekistan has 2 Nodirbeks. I'm joking. You can have people on the team with the same name. But that's not fair. They got 2 Nodirbeks. They got Nodirbek Abdusaturov, they have Nodirbek Yakuboyev, and he is going to put the pressure on Matthias Blubaum. We have a Petrov, right? A Petrov and an opening where black decides, I will suffer a little bit, but hopefully, hopefully in the long run, it's going to pay off. Knight h4, f3, we have a trade, we have another trade, the knight gets to f5, and at some point, white is going to try to either get that knight in here or use the knight as an attacking mechanism. And look at this, Nodirbek fighting back and gets that knight to the d6 square, and he's looking to get in over here, which is why black goes here, and now that pawn on d6 will probably give white a very, very sizable advantage in the long run, right? So now, just like the last game that we saw, it's up to white to apply as much pressure as possible and trade enough pieces to get into a winning endgame. Rook doubling, queen d3 check. We have a trade, and now we have queen e3 looking to battle over here. f4, slowly improving the position, transforming the position to give your opponent weaknesses, right? Targeting things. Bishop e5 check. Will you trade and let me have a pass, a pawn to pass? No. g5. Bishop back to g3, h4. Now white has 2 passed pawns that are being blockaded. Soon black will not be able to deal with the pressure. All right, white hides the king, and now white starts asking questions on that side of the board. Rook to e3, b4, nope, we're not gonna let you open up the position. How is white gonna break through? Where is the breakthrough? Bishop f6, cutting the circulation. This is under pressure. We're looking to get to e7 as well, and the reason that black does not take on f6 in this position is because after gf6, you just can't stop both, and you can't defend this, and you can't defend that, and you can't defend against rook g3, and you can't defend against your king. And it takes 52 moves, but Nodirbek Yakuboyev defeats Matthias Blubaum, and Uzbekistan and India B have the same score and the same tiebreak, and they are currently the silver and the bronze medalists. Tomorrow, one of them is going to play Armenia. I don't know which one yet. I think it's India B, but it might be Uzbekistan, and we're about to find out who the real big dogs in the stadium are. Now, behind those teams is a cluster of a few other teams, okay? And I will show you their games in a moment. We have Netherlands playing against Hungary today, and we have a giant battle. But first, we want to jump over to the women's side, all right? Because India's still winning. India tied with Ukraine today. It was 4 draws. Georgia had a dominant victory over Azerbaijan, 3.5, I think. So Georgia's in second place, and then there's a big tie. But do you remember the story of the Polish player, Olivia Kielbasa? She was 7 for 7 yesterday, and today they were playing against India's other women's team. I guess they have 2, and it was a Scandinavian. And White got a Scandinavian style, slight advantage early. That's not hanging because bishop b5 check. White just developed all the pieces, and as you can see here, has a pretty sizable advantage in development. 5 pieces out, various discovered attacking possibilities, checkmating opportunities, rook d1, and now just started like asking black questions, like, what are you doing with that rook? Oh, my queen's going in, right? All right, we trade, but White maintains dominance, right? Like, these pieces are not going anywhere. Knight d5, queen hits the rook, check. White still has 4 active pieces with rook d8 coming down. Black tries to defend, but the pressure is still there. I mean, black is unable to move that bishop and therefore unable to get back into the game. Check, check, sneaks around. And even here, taking this pawn is not necessary. You can play knight d5 and continue to harass, but White uses that pressure to win 1 pawn. And then black sacrifices a second pawn to try to get counterplay, all right? Black didn't have to do that, but that's what black chooses to do because there's only so much you can deal with having 0 development. Now White gives back a pawn, so White is only up a pawn, but has the connected pawns to be the outside passers and has some knight jumping opportunities. This king is sort of cut off, and now we have that pawn being won for that pawn, but rook b7, rook b6, and I think you know where we're headed with this, folks. I think you know where we're headed. Look at this knight c3 move. Rook b6, knight d5, looking to get into a winning knight versus bishop endgame. Olivia Kielbasa for Poland is not the only person with 8 out of 8. Her and GUKESH both have perfect scores. She's 8 out of 8. What? That's unbelievable. And Poland is tied for 3rd. I mean, they need like 1 big win against one of the other teams. I'm not sure if they've played 1 or 2 of them, but she's 8 out of 8. She's won every game she's played. She's sat for every round. She's won every game she's played. On the women's side, India's up top. Then it's Georgia, very close. Again, you have the link to the standings. You can go check it out. On the open side of things, like I said, there was a couple of matchups, not for bronze, but for that spot, the spot right below, right? Because right now Armenia's in first, then it's 2 teams, and then there's a cluster, right? So Aze Kaz versus Viktor Erdos from Hungary. A queen's gambit accepted, and Aze plays a very obscure line. He plays bishop d3 and gives away his pawn. He doesn't take the d4 pawn. He just doesn't. He makes black play around the blockade. Like, look at how he's playing. He never takes the pawn back. Castle, he never takes the pawn back. He just plays bishop f4. He's just playing the game like, he's down a pawn, but it's a blockaded position. Obviously, this is part of his preparation. Queen e2 with the idea to go here and deliver mate. Black finally has enough and plays the move f5, which forces White to make a decision. He plays en passant. And then he still doesn't hunt the pawns. He just improves his position. Knight a5, we have an exchange, right? Rook c1. And notice that Aze Kaz is still not taking anything. He's just improving his position. b4, all right? The knight cannot come to c5. Aze is using superior development to negate the activities of his opponent's pieces, and now he's going to use that to create an attack. He's going to use the fact that his opponent has a slightly worse pawn structure, g4, h4. I almost feel like Aze came to this game with 25 moves of prep. Like, this was nuts. The fact that he made it this far, just down a pawn, but with a potentially better position, and forcing black to defend, plays g5, all right? Finally takes the pawn back, because it was offered with a discovered attack, and now he just has to play this position. Now, is he, like, winning? Well, before this position, he wasn't, but After queen d6, bishop d6, black still had to be very accurate. If black tried to play bishop d2, bishop b2, he would have lost this pawn. And that's actually what he did in the game. What he did in the game is he tried to go for counterplay, but by the time the counterplay arrived, it was Anish who was winning the a6 pawn, and Anish was a pawn up. Anish used superior development and targeting of the opponent's position, despite being a pawn down, to slowly remove his defenses, and then win both pawns. And the game ended a few moves later, as Anish just started pushing. There was nothing that black could do. This was probably a perfect game by Anish. Not even exaggerating. Anish straight up played probably a perfect game, and the Netherlands are knocking on the door to a medal. They are knocking on the door. They have the best tiebreak. Technically, if you look at the standings, they're in 4th place, which is crazy, right? All right, it's Armenia, India B, Uzbekistan tied, and then the Netherlands. All right, next matchup. All right, as they defeat Hungary by the score of 3-1. We have Kazakhstan taking on Azerbaijan. All right, Azerbaijan and the Netherlands are looking to knock on that door. Now, do you remember Alisher Suleimanov yesterday, who beat David Anton? No, names are too long and hard to pronounce for you. No problem. He defeated David Anton. He also defeated today Gadir Guseynov on board 2. But on the other boards, all right, it's yet to be seen if Azerbaijan is going to be knocked out of contention by Kazakhstan. And this game was relatively tame, actually. They traded a lot of pieces, all right? It was a very balanced position. But from this point forward, Vasif Durarbayli looked over and said, we're struggling on those other boards. Rook b6. Do you know what the idea of rook b6 is, folks? The idea of rook b6 is you are about to deliver a knuckle sandwich to the white king side when the knight moves. And rook h6 came, and here came knight h5 and knight f4 and queen g5. And for the cost of just one pawn, Vasif began a monstrous attack. h5, all the pieces getting involved. Now, is white lost? No, but it's a very difficult position to defend. Knight d3, all right? Knight f2, rook is coming in. This is coming in. If this rook was here, this game would be over. So, I mean, white has to defend perfectly. Now white has to play knight d1. It's the only move. Instead of that, he gets aggressive. He tries to create aggressive counterplay. And after it takes here and just the simple capture, the game ends with a beautiful knockout punch from Vasif. Looks like the attack has been stopped. Looks like you have to repeat moves and make a draw, right? But in this position, Vasif plays rook. Oh. And the threats are plenty. Number one, if you move your queen, it's take, take, mate. Ow. If you take this, now I go check. You cannot take. Your queen hangs, right? You can't take because of the pin, and your queen hangs. You got to lose a queen. And if you try to play bishop takes f7, then the king just hides. And if you play queen takes knight, there's rook h3. You lose your queen anyway. Rook g3, brilliant move by Vasif, and this led to a 2.5, 1.5 victory for Azerbaijan, who is now right after the Netherlands. I don't know why I'm saying Azerbaijan, but I'm sorry. I have to pronounce a lot of names in this thing, and sometimes my brain just short circuits. Azerbaijan is right there. They are right there along with the Netherlands. They are also in contention for a medal. It is so close. And the last team that is right in that group of play, that group is the matchup between Iran and France. Also, every other match was a draw except this one. Puya Idani versus Matthew Cornett. White played a bishop c4 pawn, like Italian Spanish. I don't even like. Sicilian Italian game. Like I don't know. You know, this is the Sicilian defense, and this is the Italian setup, but really you don't... So white's just playing a super sideline, and black decides to go at it like this by just, you know, getting the bishop pair. It seems like it would be a logical decision. But this is clearly some sort of preparation by white. Like, what are we doing here? I mean, like, rook d8 is a threat, right? So black plays bishop b7, very natural, and castles. Remember in the Kielbasa game how the bishop on c8 struggled to develop? Yeah, well, that's kind of going to be a problem in this game as well, because black is going to try to play, you know, bishop b7. But the second that that happens, I got rook d1. Where are you moving that bishop? You play bishop b7, rook d7, right? So black is struggling to develop here. The engine is already saying to play moves like a5. All right, and like h5. This is not a very human position. Black plays rook e8. But now we have rook f4. Now we have rook g4. Now we have bishop h6, right? Now we have knight e4. Look at this. Everything's firing away here. Now, bishop a6 is a fantastic move here, deflecting the queen away from the rook. But white plays c4. If you play bishop takes c4 in this position, then after this, knight f6 check. Oops. So c4 is a nice move, and it looks like Puyeidani's got the whole position under control, right? Black plays queen e5, but now the attack doesn't stop. Bishop takes g7, takes knight h5. That knight is tactically defended through the queen. Black plays king h8. It would have been better to play king f8, apparently, because after something like rook g7, the king is always safe on e7. Just don't shoot the messenger. King h8. The problem with doing it this way is that the king is not going to be safe in the long run. Here, rook takes f7 wins for white. Instead of that, white plays h4. And now suddenly there's counterplay being created, but queen d4, queen d6, and the queen is looking to get over here. We have check. Again, if you take the knight, then white in this position plays queen here, and there's nothing to stop this, right? Queen e1 check, king here, takes. Rook comes back to g4, attacking the bishop. Queen e5 is on the way. Knight f6 is on the way. And that's exactly what ends up happening. Black tries to defend for a while, but there's no way to stop the attack. And the most insane thing about this position is that Black only got to move this rook one time. Straight up, just got to move the rook one time. White just had an initiative for like the majority of this game. It's crazy. Unbelievably impressive game from Puyeidani. Super game. And there is a 3-team tie of the Netherlands, Azerbaijan, and Iran for just under the podium. And then there's a massive group of teams under that. Now, a couple of games I also want to spotlight. There was a matchup between Canada and Turkey. A lot of you have wanted me to cover Hansen's games. In this game, we had a Sicilian defense against the board one from Turkey, Mustafa Yilmaz. Hansen played a very interesting opening, got a very comfortable position, had a nice, bind in the middle, just like the Anish game, that pawn on e5. And Hansen had a nice position, but as always in the Sicilian defense, at some point there's going to be a clash between the sides, right? And here, seeing that his opponent was kind of stuck defending awkwardly, Hansen decided to start an attack. And he removed the ability for his opponent to fight back. And the second that his opponent gave him a chance, he played b4. And he must have calculated something absolutely wicked here, because Mustafa Yilmaz made a mistake and grabbed this pawn. And the thing is with black, like the king is passive, the rook is passive, your pieces are gonna get themselves into a little bit of trouble. Watch this beautiful tactical sequence that Hansen uncorks. He plays knight d4. The move knight d4 cuts the communication here, threatens various sacrifices to open up the king, and prepares rook d1 and bullying tactics on that rank over there. Black plays g5, looking to just get a little bit of space. But look at this. In this position, black is up 2 pawns. But I told you there was too many problems in communication of the black position, right? And on top of that, there's this. Check out the move rook takes b4. If in this position black plays bishop takes b4, then white has knight takes e6. If queen takes e6, then there is rook d8 check and queen trade, and then the rook is lost. Or there is this, and queen b4. So instead of that, we have queen b4 right away instead of bishop b4, but all of this still happens. Black cannot take the rook because the queen needs defending. Hansen chops down the trees, plays check, king g7, and the attack continues. The bishop is under pressure, the pawn is under pressure. Black plays rook f8. We have queen takes b7. Not the most accurate move, actually. I think queen d1 here was preferred by the engine, but it doesn't really matter, as Hansen wins back all the pawns, now is up 1 pawn, and just has to make it to the time control to try to, kind of apply long-term pressure and win this game. Players make it to the 40th move, and now Hansen begins the winning process all over again. I mean, it happens, but white definitely has the superior chances in this game, and Hansen uses a combination of endgame savvy, 2-on-1, getting the correct transformation, and wins a beautiful game that takes 50 moves for Canada. So a beautiful game for Hansen, but Turkey won on every other board. And the Turkish team is one of the top teams right below that other score group. And the remaining team below that other score group is this one. You say, this one, what are you talking about, Levy? Well, let's watch the game. Nicholas Theodorou for Greece playing a Catalan fianchetto against the King's Indian defense. Rogelio Barcenia for the Philippines. And this was a very complicated game. Black sacrificed the piece early for queenside assault, right, for all of this. And it was just a very complex game as Black tried to win all the queenside pawns and go. But Theodorou just had to call the bluff. I mean, he basically just had to deal with all this pressure and was like, you know what, there's nothing here. I'm going to deal with this. But look at the eval. It's only 0.4. Black obviously has something here, right? The complete control of this position is very difficult for White to move. Let's see how Theodorou is going to deal with this, all right? Knight G1, looking to play Knight E2. Takes, Knight E2, Knight F4, and he activates the knight into his opponent's position. We have a middle endgame fight. Theodorou is basically saying Black has nothing there, and in the long run, I have good pressure, and I'm going to bring my king and my pawns. And that is what Nicholas tries to do. Look, he's not letting him through, brings the king, all right? Pushes his pawns, pushes his pawns. That one pawn now is going to be the annoying thing for Black. It's going to be really tough for Black to deal with the king and the pawn and everybody coming down, as the blockade here is impossible for Black to deal with. Like Rook A2, for example, there's always tactics. There's always various tactics on the C5 pawn. Right now there's a check, but there's been tactics throughout this game. And that's actually what happens. I mean, Rook A2, Rook F1 preventing Rook F2 check. And look at this. Theodorou just cool-headed defense. Finally begins fighting back. You can't take because this. And then Rook F8. So we have Bishop H5. And Theodorou making it look easy. Playing calm defense throughout this game. You might ask, why is this not possible? King G6 and Rook F8 is checkmate. Ouch. And that is what Theodorou does. He gets all the way down to the Black king. Black resigns. This was the only decisive game in the matchup between Greece and the Philippines. Greece is right there as well. They have one of the highest score groups in that 12-point score group. They have a better tiebreak than every team, including Peru, Serbia, Lithuania, Germany, Brazil, Kazakhstan, you name it. And that, my friends, concludes round 8. GUKESH, unstoppable. Armenia, unstoppable. Will Uzbekistan and India B or India 2 make it to that gold medal? I have no idea. I'll see you for round number 9. Get out of here.